Good afternoon. My name is Courtney Anthony, and I will be presenting the Jones family analysis. My target client is Clarice Precious Jones. Precious is 16 years old. She lives in Harlem, New York. Her family consists of herself, her mother Mary, and her father Carl is absent. And Precious is the mother of two children, Mungo and Abdul. The presenting problem is there is incestual and sexual abuse, physical, verbal, and emotional abuse, illiteracy, teenage pregnancy, Precious is HIV positive, there is poverty, obesity, and health-related problems. Human behavior analysis. So Precious is in her adolescent development stage. She has a crisis between identity and role confusion. Precious has low self-esteem and also has a distorted self-image of herself. Cognitively, Precious is illiterate and is in the 8th grade at age 16. Precious struggles to read and write. Biologically, Precious is obese and has given birth to two children, and she is also HIV positive. Psychologically, Precious shows signs of PTSD and dissociating from her reality by daydreaming. Socially, Precious is withdrawn and isolated at her public school, and her family environment is abusive and disorganized. Human behavior analysis continued. Precious should be having fundamental skills of reading, writing, and calculating. Precious is 16 and is in the 8th grade. Um, Precious should be developing a plan for the future, problem solving, and applying abstract thinking to her schoolwork and to her daily living. Precious should be establishing her identity and sense of self, and Precious should be forming friendships and supportive relationships with peers and community members. A Precious psychosocial crisis is identity versus role confusion. Precious has a negative viewpoint of herself because she has been physically, sexually, and emotionally abused. Precious has been called stupid and worthless, which has possibly confused her on her purpose in life. I applied ecological systems theory to Precious's circumstance. Her microsystems would be her immediate environment. Precious was received physical, emotional, and sexual abuse from both her mother and father. And in public school, that is a hostile environment for her. She was threatened to be expelled for her pregnancy, and the school failed to provide resources to her. Mesosystem would be her microsystems interactions. So there appears to be a breakdown between Precious's school and her mother. There appears to not be adequate communication between the two. And her mother also undermines her education and how important it is. Her peers at school, Precious does not have any positive peer relationships before going to the Each One Teach One school. So in her public school, she did not have any close peer relationships. Exosystem would be influences. So the social services, I feel like the social worker and social services mishandled Precious' case initially for some time. They did not observe the concerning signs of abuse and neglect. And then healthcare hospital did not seek or provide services to Precious, with her giving birth to two children at the age of 16. Microsystem would be cultural values, laws. So Precious and her family live in a poverty-stricken area of New York. And this area in New York is stereotyped with systematic oppression relating to race and class. So skills that I could use when working with Precious is rapport and trust building, um, getting her to trust me and building that supportive relationship. Empathy and validation, so empathizing with Precious in her situation, and also validating her in her feelings and concerns. Providing cultural competence would be me being aware of Precious's circumstances, her family dynamics, the dynamics of living in Harlem in New York and what that looks like on a daily. Providing clear and simple communication. So Precious has an 8th grade. Well, she's in the 8th grade, but she has some trouble with reading and writing. So just being clear and using simple words that she would understand. Empowerment would be next. So empowering her to know that she can do anything that she sets her mind to. Her circumstances do not define her. Letting her know that she's a good mom, and she's doing well at that. Providing risk assessment, so identifying risk of Precious and her living situation, and strength-based assessment, so notifying Precious of all of her strengths and highlighting those areas. So here is a genogram of Precious's family. So on her father's side, we do not know her grandfather or grandmother, but we do know that her father is Carl Jones. On her mother's side, we do not know her grandfather, but we know that her mother's mother is Miss Betty Tootsie Johnson. And then we know that Precious's father is Carl Jones, and her mother is Mary Johnson. We know that Clarice is a product of her mother and father. And then I also have that Abdul Jones and Mongo Jones, which is Precious's children, is also a product of Precious and her father, Carl Jones. Here is a eco map of Precious and her environment. So we have Precious in the middle, and Precious has a positive relationship and emotional support from her teacher, Ms. Rain, from Each One Teach One. She has a positive relationship with her daughter, Mongo, with her son, Abdul. She has positive relationship with Nurse John, who was there when she gave birth to Abdul. She has positive relationship with the Each One Teach One school, and she has a positive and a support system from her classmates, Rhonda, Joanne, etc., from the Each One Teach One school. Precious has a stressful and conflicted relationship with her mother, Mary, and her father, Carl, from certain scenes that we saw. Precious has a limited support system from her grandmother, Tootsie. Her grandmother was present in some scenes, but it didn't seem like she was a strong support system for Precious to escape from her current living situation. And Precious had some mistrust and a weak relationship in the beginning with Miss Weiss from the home advancement. So Precious is resilient and has some strong survival instinct. She has developed a positive coping mechanism to escape her trauma. She loves and nurtures both her children. Precious has a willingness to learn and a desire for education. She has a willingness to open up to people. She journals, and she was able to develop friends, and she has a positive relationship with Miss Rain and Miss Weiss. So Precious needs protection from abuse and safety. She needs adequate medical care, psychological treatment from her trauma and abuse, financial independence, and continued literacy. And Mary needs mental health treatment, financial support, income, and psychological support to process her own traumas and behaviors. So I completed an individualized service plan, or ISP, with the family. Family name would be in the mother's name, so Mary Jones. The county would be Jefferson. Case number, type of ISP is the initial meeting. I'm gonna put the date that we met, and then the next review date would we're required to meet within 30 days. So I put the 30-day time frame. The person invited would be Mary Jones. She is the mother. How I invited her. When I invited her, she signed that she was present. And the date that ISP was distributed or given to the family. So Mary, Clarice, and Betty also attended. Betty is the maternal grandmother. So the target child is Clarice Jones. I have that she's female. Don't know her date of birth. Permanency goal currently is return to parent, and this was established at the ISP. Target date for that would be 6 months, so May of says 2025-2026. And then a permanent relative, the concurrent planning goal would be permanent relative placement or transfer of custody to that relative. And that was established on the date of the ISP. Current reasons for DHR involvement would be the family is involved with the department due to ongoing reports and concerns of abuse to Clarice. And then the department is also concerned of Precious's pregnancies, health, and education. Family strengths. So Precious is resilient, has strong survival instincts. Again, she has a willingness to learn and further her education. She appears to love and nurture both of her children. She has a willingness to open up, journal, and develop friends. And another strength is Precious has a positive relationship with Ms. Weiss and Ms. Rain. Family members, what must happen for DHR to no longer be involved? So Precious and Mary must both comply with the services that the department is offering, and Ms. Jones must be able to provide a safe and stable home for Precious to return. Family members' needs. So Precious needs protection from abuse and neglect, needs psychological treatment to cope with trauma. Precious needs continued literacy. Precious needs adequate medical, dental, and eye care. Precious needs financial independence, and Miss Mary needs mental health treatment. So the first need, Clarice needs safety from abuse and neglect. The goal is to provide her with a safe and stable home. Step one to do this is that I would place Precious on an out-of-home safety plan, preferably with the maternal grandmother, Betty, or another viable relative if Miss Betty is unwilling. Step two would be to complete monthly worker visits to monitor Precious' safety and well-being in her safety plan placement. Clarice needs adequate medical, dental, and eye care. So the goal is to make sure she is healthy and receiving adequate care. As the worker, I would help facilitate appointments for her to the pediatrician, OBGYN to check up on her after her deliveries, to the dentist, and optometrist. So Precious needs psychological treatment. The goal is to make sure she is stable mentally and has received appropriate treatment to address trauma. Step one would be to schedule her a psychological evaluation, just to get any diagnoses and recommendations for treatment. Step two would also be to schedule her to start attending individual therapy to address her abuse and treatment. So Precious needs to establish some financial independence. So the goal is to make sure she has learned money management, home management, and career preparation. So step one would be to refer her to intensive in-home services. Intensive in-home services can help her with all of those things, help her to develop a resume, help her to find clothes for jobs, seeking employment, help her fill out applications that can help her in learning how to develop skills for taking care of herself, taking care of her home, taking care of her children by herself, and just make sure that she's prepared for the world. Clarice, a need is that she needs to continue attending school and furthering her education. The goal is to make sure she continue to improve her literacy to better her future. So step one would be to help facilitate her into a new school after she finishes with Each One Teach One, and help her. Step two would be to help facilitate her to receive an IEP due to her being behind. This will give her some help with completing classwork, getting extra time on work, maybe getting an aide to go with her and help her complete homework assignments, classwork assignments. Maybe she needs a study hall tutoring, so this will help her in completing her education. Mary Jones needs mental health treatment, so the goal is to help Mary to process her own traumas and her behaviors to be a stable parent. So step one would be to refer Mary to complete a psychological evaluation to determine if she has any diagnoses, to also gain a better understanding of her past traumas, reasons that she behaves the way she does. So that will help to determine if she needs further services in that area. Step two would be to refer Mary to receive individual therapy to address her traumas and abusive behaviors. So Mary will be doing individual counseling on her own to better herself and address her own situation. General comments, I said that this is the initial ISP. We're required to meet again in 30 days to determine if referrals have been made and also to discuss if the family believes they can benefit from any other services that were not discussed at the initial ISP. And I sign as the worker. So my rationale for completing the ISP the way that I did, completing an ISP with goals for Precious and Mary to complete is the best step for reunification. The ISP goals gives all family members the opportunity to comply with services and to better their situations. Currently, the goal is to return to parent. However, through the course of the case, if reunification is not a viable and safe option for Precious, then the permanency goal will change. When reunification with parents are deemed unsafe for a child, the department is mandated to transition the child towards legal guardianship or adoption, according to Bartow et al. And here is my reference for establishing that rationale for my decisions. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Thank you.